And we should be live if the internet gods are smiling upon us. I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter. With me today is Sarah.
Hi!
And we are here for our free live Friday class. And we're going to paint this Kingfisher. And I did make the beak a little too pointy at the end and a little too thick towards the end of when I was painting it. So we're going to not do that this time. But I just wanted to have this as an example to show you what we're up to today. This video is sponsored by jerrysartorama.com. And we are going to be using the Turner watercolors that they have on special right now. I've got mine in a handy Zoltan Zabo palette. Of course, you can put them out in whatever palette you like. I'm also going to be using Prismacolor pencils, and I'm just using a few shades here. I forgot to list the colors of the pencils in the description, so I'll just go through them right now. We've got white, we have burnt ochre, indigo blue, electric blue, mahogany red, cloud blue, warm gray, gray lavender, sable, and this is beige. So anything in that, realm, it doesn't matter what brand you use really. You just want a wax base, not a watercolor pencil. You could use an oil-based pencil as well. I've taped down my paper because I am going to be using a lot of water in the background, so I recommend that you do that as well. And just make sure you push your edges down so that when we paint, it doesn't seep underneath. So you'll have a nice fresh white border here. I'm going to start by sketching, and you can sketch right along with me. I'm just using a regular #2 pencil, and if you want to have a peek at the reference photo, you can find that linked up in the video description. I'm going to start with an oval, and think about the rule of thirds when you're composing your piece. So what you basically want to do would be divide your paper in thirds that way, and divide it in thirds the other way, kind of like you're making a tic-tac-toe. And where the points intersect, these are rolling everywhere, but where they intersect is where you'd have the most interest in your painting. So that's kind of where you want to place your objects. You don't want them smack dab in the middle, because then your eye goes there and doesn't go anywhere else. So it just makes for a more interesting painting. So over on this kind of third area, I'm going to put an oval for the body of my bird. And on top of it, I'm going to put kind of like another oval, and then I am going to put the beak, and they do have a long beak, so just want to let you know that. Don't worry about extra lines. I'm going to show you how to what I recommend for getting rid of those in just a second. And get the tail, the wings here. And we need that tail, which just kind of tapers down, and it's not very long. It's kind of an awkward looking bird, really. Tummy kind of sticking out a little bit more over there. And then we want to get our branch in. And the branch really guides the eye across the paper. So we want to make sure, maybe have this not right in the corner. See how I had it kind of like off? Because if I went right in the corner, then it kind of would send your eye out off of one of the edges of the painting, and it wouldn't keep your focus on the center of the picture as much. So I think I'm actually going to move that over a little bit. Move this. Have this branch kind of come up, and again, in about a third of the paper. We want that in that third area. I'm just going to put a few little buds off of the little branch here. Now we're going to do a resist technique. If you don't want to do a resist technique, then you could use masking fluid to mask this branch. But we're actually I'm going to type it in. I'm going to draw it in with colored pencils, and that will create a resist and will protect the paper underneath so the paint doesn't stick to it. But you can definitely use masking fluid and then paint over it with just a light gray, mixed gray color when you're done. So either way is totally fine. And then what I like to use to clean up any of my lines is a plastic white eraser. I like this high polymer one by Pentel. It's sold with drafting supplies. I'm sure you can find it at Jerry's. The deal is to get a plastic or vinyl eraser, because it's not, you can rub the paper with it and it's not going to damage anything. If you use a kneaded eraser, you just want to press it to it and pull, but I find that you really can't remove the pencil marks quite as well as you can with a vinyl eraser. And like the art gum erasers seem to be a little more abrasive as well. So I've found that these work the best. And then you're actually better off too, so you don't get your like, you don't smudge the pencil marks. If you just use a brush to brush off the crumbs from your eraser, it's gonna work a lot better. And I feel like I just want to do a little more work on this this bird. I feel like I need a little bit more wing there. Just want to make sure this is all right in my sketch so I don't end up with any errors when I go to paint it. Like I want that pointing down a little bit more. Because they do have a really long beak, and when you're looking at an animal that's got something that's kind of odd like that, if any sort of error can make it look really off. And I'm going to get rid of this branch actually because it's just looks awkward. It's right there by the beak, so I'm just going to omit it. And then if you want to draw features on at this point, you can. And I think might as well just get that potential for making a mistake with paint out of the way. And you know, you could print out the photo and trace it if you're not comfortable drawing. There's nothing wrong with that when you're learning. Nothing wrong with that at all. Get to the fun part of painting. There. And I think I've got enough to go on here. All right, so with our pencils, I'm just going to grab them all out right here. I am going to start with this gray. This is warm gray 30%. If your gray is a little darker than this is about the same darkness as the pencil. If your gray is a little darker than this, just go with a lighter touch because we're going to burnish other colors on top. So this is just to add a little color. We're not using this to really add the resist. Since this is a wax-based pencil, the watercolor is not going to stick to it, and it's going to protect the paper underneath. And you could even go in and do this after. If you don't feel like putting it in now, you could always paint the bird first and go in after. Because these are opaque and they will stick on top of the watercolor. Now I'm going to go in with some of this cloud blue and fill in a lot of the branch. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in all caps, and when I have a break in the action, I will answer them. Sarah's monitoring the chat for you guys.
Well, we have a question.
Sure.
Sydney Doe, how do you get your edges even with the tape?
It's easy if you tape it onto a colored board. Like this is a paper, like a whatchamacallit, a cutting board, and it's gray, so I can easily see the border of my paper. But you can always peel it up and try again if you don't get it just right. Now I'm going to add a little bit of this grayed lavender, especially around the ends of these little buds. We want this to be a little lighter than the background, so just go real careful with your color. Now I'm going to burnish over with white before I do anything else, because I do want to make sure that, well, I'm not really burnishing too much right now. I'm just kind of layering that color in there. I want to make sure that not too much color can stick. I'm working on 140-pound Arches watercolor paper. Cotton, it's a cotton paper, and if you've never used a cotton-based paper before, the one thing you'll notice is that you have a lot more control over where the paint goes, and you'll notice that when I go to put the background in a few minutes here.
Gracie Shack 1, if you wanted to get some metallic paints, which sets would you recommend to buy?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, for watercolors, there's a set by Niji that I like, and it's very affordable. I think it's like $4 or $5, and it's like, I think it's like 18 or 24 colors or something. And Niji is the brand, Niji, and I think they're great. You don't get a ton of paint in the little pans, but, you know, it takes a while to use one up, and, you know, a whole set for $4 or $5, you can, you know, kind of afford to replace a set if you use up a color or two. I was just adding some of this beige in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of this sable color, which is kind of like a light yellow ochre.
Valerie Connell, Lindsay, has the green oil paint gotten any drier yet?
I haven't been back downstairs to check out that painting. I was using the Lucas oil paints from Jerry's yesterday in the tutorial, and Valerie left a comment. She asked if those paints dry faster, because she heard that they had, and I didn't know that, and so I went downstairs and checked it, and all the colors were dry or tacky except for the green that I used in the ground color. So, and that was at 18 hours after painting, so I was pretty impressed.
Oh,
Yeah, for oil paints. And that's nice because then you can you don't have to worry about, cat hairs and dog hairs and stuff getting stuck in it. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of defining with some brown. And we'll return to the colored pencils in this again later. This is just to kind of be like a place marker for us. A little bit of this this is mahogany red, just a little bit in the little bud areas, because when you have like the trees are about to burst, you just get a little bit of red where the leaves are going to come out.
Stephanie Mueller, I have a hard time with taking some of the tapes. Sorry, try that again. I have a hard time with tapes taking some of the paper with them. What kind of tape do you use?
I'm just using cheap masking tape from the dollar store, but you can use blue painter's tape. I'll show you how I remove this at the end, and I think it's probably a removal issue, or it could be the paper you're using. Alright, so you want to wet your paper. The spray bottle makes it a little bit quicker. And then I'm just spreading it out with my brush. And we're going to use almost all the colors that we're using in the painting in the background here. Actually, I think we do end up using them all. We're going to start with some permanent yellow. And that kind of is like a cad yellow light or cad yellow medium if you're not using the Turner set. Anything that's kind of a neutral to cool yellow. I don't know if you want lemon yellow because that's really, really, really cool, but somewhere in that family would be good. And we're also going to grab some yellow ochre. And you can go right over your branches because we can wipe off that paint. It's not going to stick permanently. I am trying to avoid the bird a little bit though. We're going to go in with a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And that's going to be kind of like a nice gray color. Probably used to a lot of these mixes by now if you've been painting along.
Lisa Little, do you use hot pressed or cold pressed?
For painting, I generally use cold press or rough. For rubber stamping, I would use hot press. So it just depends on what I'm painting. Like this I would use like a cold press, just because you don't want too much texture. But if it was a landscape, I would use rough. Then I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and just add a little peaks in the sky. This is all like really soft focus, out of focus stuff here. So, and then I'm going to grab some sap green.
I kind of like just the blobby.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think actually instead of grabbing sap green, I'm going to grab that permanent yellow. I'm going to mix it with my phthalo blue, which is the color of the Kingfisher. I'm going to see if that gives me a nice sap green color, because then I can omit the sap green, and I think it'll give me a very similar color, especially if I add some yellow ochre to it. So that's what I'm doing. I'll scoop my palette over. You can see me mix it there a little bit. Might be a little out of focus because I've already set my focus. Oh, that's a nice green. I'm going to add a little yellow ochre to that. See if it gives me a nice sap color. Oh yeah, that'll be good. We don't need to use the sap green. That will suffice. There, one less color we need for this painting.
The Star 22, are you going to do a how-to book?
Not unless a publisher contacts me and wants to pay me to do it. I don't think I would do it on my own, just because publishing is so volatile right now. It's kind of hard to get your investment back, even just your investment of time. But I would love to. I mean, if I found a publisher to work with, I definitely would consider it.
Lisa Puskis, can you go back over the painting with the pencil once the painting dries, and can you use them over a wet surface?
Don't use it over the wet surface, but after it's dry, you can go over with the pencils again. If you go over it with the paper that's wet, it's going to it will scrape it up. Adding a little bit more ultramarine blue, just to kind of make it feel like we've got some sky here. And I haven't really done anything to blot or on the bird. I'm just kind of avoiding the bird. Just want to make sure I have lots and lots of color in here because I want the background to be darker than the foreground.
Gracie Shack 1. I was wondering what advice Lindsay would give to someone who just signed up and enrolled in a botanical art course online.
I would say listen to your instructor. I'm sure they have lots of that. I mean, you're paying to take the class, so they probably have lots of really awesome tips and advice for you. You know, and just be open-minded and don't be afraid to learn and make mistakes because they're there to help you. All right, now I'm going to flick some colors on. I'm going to flick on some of the yellow. You have to make it pretty wet to get it to come off your brush.
And I would like to say that from where I'm sitting, you can definitely see the paper has risen up and it's not totally flat, and that, so if yours is doing it, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And if we didn't tape it down and had it this wet, it would probably be like buckling off, just like curling up. So that's why I went ahead and taped it. You know, I think I will go with some sap green. I'm just feeling like that green's a little too not earthy enough. I think that's kind of bugging me. I think I do want the sap green in here, so I'm changing my mind. I did the sap green in the original one, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the sap green in there. I'm sorry, do we have a question?
Yes, Anna Banana. Hi, Lindsay. Thanks
Hello.
for your videos and live streams. Do you need to follow fat over lean rule with water mixable oils? If so, should water be used like solvent and linseed oil like oily medium?
Yes, I would still follow that rule. I don't think I've used mediums when I've used the water mixable oils. I think I've just used the paints pretty straight. But yes, anytime you're working with oils, you know, even if you're working with watercolors, if you're going to use like watercolor crayons or water soluble oil pastels, you still want to keep that fat over lean rule in mind so that the bottom layers will adhere well to your substrate, so you don't end up with stuff flaking off. So what I'm doing here is taking a dry brush and going into different, if I see a puddle, just picking that up. I still think I want a little more texture and maybe a little bit more depth of color, so I'm going to grab some yellow ochre and some water and splatter that on because I like the way that looked in my first picture.
Jose Lopez. Hi, Lindsay. Is stretched paper more prone to tearing since the fibers are being stretched?
No, it's strong paper. It shouldn't bother it.
Northern Birder. I am planning to travel to Maine soon. Are there any good art stores in Presque Isle, or should I come to Bangor? I know this is a bit off topic, but please answer, or can anyone else answer?
Your best bet would probably be Portland.
Yeah, Portland. Presque Isle, there's not going to be any art stores up there. Bangor, I mean, we have, you know, Hobby Lobby and AC Moore, but there aren't any small independent art stores. So yeah, Portland would definitely be your best bet. Unfortunately, Presque Isle is on one end of the state and Portland is on the opposite end of the state, so it will be kind of a drive.
It's a big state too.
Yes.
My sister has a shop in China, Maine, which is down near Augusta and Waterville, and it's called Brian's Arts and Crafts. There's also Rockland Blueprint.
Yeah, they have
coast.
They have a nice selection. I've been there in a couple of years, but last time I went, they had a good selection of stuff.
Yeah, you probably want to just do like a Google search and see what you can find. I also want to put a little texture, just not crazy texture, just a kind of a little modeling by kind of tapping here and there, and this will pick up any big puddles that I have. And then while this is still wet, I'm going to take a Q-tip and wipe out the paint from the branch. And you can wipe on top of the colored pencil because it's already protecting the paper. So you just wipe that right off, and that gave us that nice resist. And then we are going to hit that with the heat tool, and when I use the heat tool, I will take some more questions. So if you guys have them, go ahead and put them in the chat, type them in caps so Sarah can see them, and we'll answer questions while we're drying. We'll make good use of our time.
Yeah, that's cool how you can run that over the pencil. General Axes, when do we need to use hot press watercolor paper? I am confused with hot press and cold press paper difference.
Hot press paper is smooth, so portrait artists might use hot press just because they can get a little more detail. If you're working really tiny with really small brushes, you might like hot press. Hot press is especially useful for rubber stampers or printmakers because it's easier to get a good impression on a smooth background like that. I pretty much only use hot press if I'm rubber stamping and I want to watercolor a design, or if I'm working really small.
Flow, Lindsay, how did you get started?
Well, I started painting. I had a neighbor who was an artist and art teacher, and I started taking lessons with her when I was a child, when I was 5. And I just always loved art, and I started painting watercolors with her when I was 7. And it's something I've always done. This has always been a pastime and then eventually a career. Any others?
I'm a little behind. We've got a lot of chatting going on, so I'm getting caught up.
Oh, sure. Oh, if you guys wouldn't mind giving a thumbs up to this video, you can thumbs up it now or at any point. And you can always share it, even after the fact, if you really enjoyed it and you think your friends and people you know would enjoy the video. It really helps my channel grow and helps get folks to the live streams. And the more the merrier, I think, with a live stream.
Gracie Shack 1, which mixed journals would you get if you wanted to do mixed media art as well as watercolors?
I would get the Canson Visual Journal 140-pound cold press. That comes in 5x7 and 9x12 size, I believe. This is still a little damp. This cotton paper absorbs so much water that it might take you a little longer to dry it. And a hairdryer is totally fine for this. You don't have to have a heat tool.
Love your videos, always informative. Do you have to use watercolor pencils whenever you paint with watercolor?
No. You could sketch on with a regular pencil. Here I'm using wax pencils because I want it to resist. It's up to you whether you want to use them or not. There's really no have to or must do it this way or must do it that way at all.
Susan Carson likes the Q-tip technique. Thank you. Or thanks. Dominique Fectau. It's French. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. I didn't take French in high school. Hi Lindsay, I'm a fellow Mainer living in Skowhegan and have been looking for an art store closer to me than Portland. What was the name of that store you mentioned and where is it?
Brian's Arts and Crafts. It's in the same building as Lakeview Lumber, which is my parents' store, right on Route 202 in China, Maine. From Skowhegan, it'd probably be about half an hour drive, I think. All right, I'm going to start with a wash on the bird now. And if you touch your paper with the back of your hand, if it feels cool to the touch, it's still damp and your lines will feather. If it feels warm or room temperature, you're all set. So I'm just putting some water on the back and wing area. I think I'm gonna have to scrub out the belly area there. I noticed the paint creeped in a little bit more than I wanted it to, but not a big deal. The brushes I'm using are the Mimic Kolinsky. They're faux Kolinsky from Jerry's Artorama. They're fantastic brushes, but they do hold a lot of water. So if you're a beginner, you may prefer to stick with like one of them like regular synthetics that don't mimic natural hair. I'm going to use Phthalo Blue for this. And Phthalo Blue is one of those paint colors that can be a little tricky because it's so vibrant. You can see how lovely it is. Super, super transparent. It's also highly staining, so that's why I don't typically like to use this in a background too much, just because it's hard to lift off and remove if you need to blot it out of an area. Typically, the more intense a color is, the more vivid it is, the more it will stain. The particles are smaller usually.
Elitia Tan, do you have any tips on how to color better and draw?
I have a few videos on drawing, but the biggest tip is just to practice. That's what's gonna make you better. There's really no shortcut. Just practice and draw what you see. Also, like holding up like a piece of plexiglass or like a clear clipboard, you can find them at the dollar store. And looking through that and drawing what you see. That way you'll draw what you actually see and not what your brain tells you is there. I'm letting the color be a little darker on the wings.
Gracie Shack 1, what's Lindsay's advice about storing paintings?
I keep them, well, I pretty much put everything I make in my shop to sell shortly after I make it. So I mat it and put it in a clear bag. I get them at Paper Mart. They're just like clear polypropylene bags. And that stores them really well. But if I'm not ready to frame them, I just put them in a large portfolio. And you can find those at Jerry's pretty inexpensively. And you could store really big works done on large sheets of paper, so it's nice. They don't get bent or anything.
Ailden 1972. Hi Lindsay, do you see any sign of any of your children following in your footsteps in the painting or crafting?
My daughters are pretty crafty. My daughter Lila really seems to enjoy it the most. But I don't know. I think they all have their own things they want to do. My daughter Maisie's really into sports, and my son's really into camping and outdoorsy things. So I don't know as far as professional. My daughter Lila wants to own a pet store. So who knows? They're young now. They're young. It's hard to tell.
Change.
Yep.
Marit Hansen. Hello, Lindsay. Have you
Hello?
painted garden stairs ever? Tutorial, maybe?
Garden stairs.
Garden/stairs.
I don't
I'm not sure.
think so. I've done a window box with geraniums in it. That's probably the most gardeny thing that I've done. If you want to find kind of a photo of what you mean and share it with me on Facebook at The Frugal Crafter, facebook.com/thefrugalcrafter. I could take a look at it and see if I can find something similar to like that. I'm just kind of I didn't wet the head before I put the paint in because I didn't want to have unwieldy paints, and I'm just kind of dragging out a little bit of that color just to give it like the impression of little feathers. And I'm still using that number 6 round brush. I haven't gone to the smaller one. I'm only using 3 brushes in this. But I try to stay with my bigger brushes as long as I can, and then that way I don't fuss with stuff too much.
Geetha Jacob, do you think watercolor pencils are worth buying if you have watercolors?
I do. I really enjoy watercolor pencils, but it's up to you. You know how much you're going to use a specific supply. Everybody's different. What's useful to one person isn't useful to everybody. I'm lightening this up just by blotting it because I know I want to do a layer on top with some, I'll show you here. I want to do a layer on top with some darker lines to kind of give it that polka dotty speckled look that they have. So I just want to lighten that up just a touch here. Okay, and I'm going to get out that little smudge that I made before it causes any problems.
Ender Girl USA, do you have any tips for keeping a daily sketchbook?
Other than just keep it with you so you can use it. That'd probably be my biggest tip. Okay, now I think I will switch to the smaller one. I want to work on the beak. And to make my dark, I'm going to use that phthalo blue, and I'm going to use burnt sienna. It'll be kind of like a grainy black is what we're going to end up with. Because burnt sienna is red based, and the phthalo blue is green based. You can really see that green in there. There's not enough red in the burnt sienna to completely cancel it out. I'm going to do the bottom part of the beak first because that's where it's darkest. And it helps to rest your hand on your table if you can. You'll be able to control the brush a little bit better because you won't be so shaky.
Cindy McVeigh, is there a rule of thumb to know how wet your wash should be? I never know how much water to put on.
It really depends on what you're painting and how much you want your paint to flow, I think. I'm doing this black area around the eye, just being careful not to get it too much into, too close to the blue, because I don't want it to bleed. But I got this color, I want to kind of use it while I've got it handy. Blotting my brush because I had a little bead of water on there.
SN Colorful had a question. What temperature should the blow dryer be on when you're drying your paper?
I'm using a heat tool, so it doesn't really blow as much as it heats. I would try, I mean, if it's not moving your paint around, then you could go with high. If it is moving your paint around, you probably want it to go to low. It's not the temperature as much as it is like how much it's blowing.
Lindsay Russell, do you do custom paintings for customers?
Not anymore. I used to, but I stopped doing that. I want to paint what I want to paint. I don't enjoy painting commissions that much. While I'm at it, I'm taking that dark and I'm adding it under these wings over here. And I just have my paint wet enough that it will come off my brush. I don't have it really soupy because I don't want to, I'm kind of going over some damp paper, so I want to make sure it's not going to run uncontrollably on me.
Asail Pineda, what happened to the sea monkeys?
The sea monkeys, they met their they died of natural causes. They were pretty old. And I made sure I kept them around for a couple of weeks after I was pretty sure the last one had perished, and then I gave them a lovely burial. They had a good life.
They did.
Yeah, they were old. I keep sea monkeys alive for a long time.
I never had sea monkeys.
They're fun. They seem to be quite social. Like, they'll come right out to they'll swim over. They see you come to them, they'll swim over to the edge and look at you. And yeah, I like them. They're a commitment because I have like the craziest, oldest, long-lasting sea monkeys ever. I don't know. I have a green thumb with sea monkeys, I guess.
Rowflow, any tips for how to get started teaching classes in my local area?
Right now, I would suggest you do paint parties because there's such a popular trend right now. I've outlined the top of the beak, and now I'm going to add a little bit of water in with that small brush. And I'm using the small brush so I don't get too much in there. And I'm going to kind of let it wick some of that paint around. This is my phthalo blue and burnt sienna mix still. I'm just going to drop some of that in there. I don't want it as dark on the top as I did the bottom because there's some light giving a highlight to it. And I think I need to smooth that slope out a little bit, and I also need a little bit of a brownie area. Yeah, I think that the paint parties are so popular right now, and they're all, you're doing those at beginner level classes, so it's a great place to jump in and start teaching.
Selena Marino, what do you think of watercolor pens?
I have some. I have the Spectrum Aqua, and a lot of the markers that we've always used for stamping are water-based. I do like the real brush, the Zig Clean Color real brush pens an awful lot. I think they're great. I think they're they're not as good of a deal as getting watercolor paints because chances are they're going to fade on you. I think Winsor Newton's the only watercolor pen that is light fast. So you got to keep that in mind, that your artwork's not going to last as long. So, but it's great for coloring stamped images, making greeting cards. I think they'd be good for scrapbooking because your scrapbooks aren't open to the elements, hanging on a wall like your paintings would be. I think they're fun. I just think, as far as an investment, I would go for watercolor paints before I'd go for those pens if you have to choose. And just know that whatever you do with them, unless you've got ones that are specifically light fast, they're not going to be light fast. I just used a little yellow ochre there and spread it with water, and then I put some yellow ochre there and didn't spread it because I'm going to grab some burnt sienna and let those colors mix.
Alicia Tan, if the paint smudges, how do you get the smudges off?
You can brush over it with clear water and blot. Don't rub.
Lynn McLean, Are you planning to do any more oil painting tutorials?
Did you see the one I did last night, Lynn? I just did poppies and oil. And yes, I am. I love oil painting. I don't know why I get away from it for so long. I think I just I get lazy, and watercolor is so easy because my palette's ready to go whenever I am. So, but yes, I am planning on doing more. I really enjoy oil painting, especially in the summer when I can open a window and I don't have to have the fumes. And Q-tips are so handy for getting in there and blotting out little areas.
Elizabeth Machi. Hi ladies, I'm wondering how much you'd price a painting like this. Also greeting card price. Thank you.
I price all my greeting cards, and Sarah might have a different, I know you sell greeting cards too. My watercolor greeting cards.
I've never actually officially sold a greeting card though.
You haven't?
No.
Really?
I have people look, but nobody's ever bought anything.
You've put them for sale in your booth?
Yeah.
Huh, that's strange. They're probably too distracted by your beautiful jewelry.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I love your jewelry. I sell my 5x7 watercolor cards, and I just put them with an envelope in a clear bag. I sell them for $7, and my watercolor paintings, this size, if they're matted and I try to get around 25. I don't always, but that's what I shoot for this size. It all depends on where you're selling as well. Oh, my background is, those wings are still wet underneath, so you can see how my paint is feathering. I'm not gonna fret about that. I'm just gonna spread that out and then dry it and then go over it, because I do feel like these wings still need to be a little darker than the back anyway. So
Roflo, how would you suggest I advertise a paint party? I am new to my town. The library, your local library.
Yep, if you can get someone that you know to host it, that would be even better, because then they would bring their friends and pay your fee.
It's usually bulletin boards in like town office, or again the library. Sometimes you can put stuff up in a school.
Yeah, are you advertising one that you're going to do anyway, or are you trying to get customers? I guess would be my question, because if you're trying to get customers, then I would definitely put business cards around on community bulletin boards, like Sarah mentioned.
The grocery store.
Yep, definitely.
Local convenience store.
Paper, the newspaper, a lot of times they'll let you advertise classes for free. I don't know about paint parties, but I got a lot of free advertising for my business through the local free papers. The free papers are really good. What you want to mainly reach is women, because they're going to be more likely to book than men. So any places women would read.
Shall remain nameless. Do you ever use warm water with watercolor markers? I follow a blog whose artist swears by using warm water. He says it spreads the dye better. What's your opinion?
I've never heard that, but I know warm water can damage your paper easier, so I always use cold water whenever I wet my paper or stretch it or anything. But that's a very interesting opinion. I wouldn't say it's a wrong opinion. Because, warm water usually, like soap spreads better in warm water. While my bird is drying, I'm just going to go ahead with my white pencil and start to highlight my branch. Make sure I have nice crisp edges. Widen it out if I want to.
Jose Lopez, I am very close to buckling down and starting a YouTube channel, but I am a little scared, and I am also unsure on how to start. Any tips, Lindsay?
Turn on your camera and start recording. Remember, you don't have to upload it if you don't like it, but you got to get comfortable in front of the camera. I actually just was interviewed by Evan Carmichael yesterday on his channel. If you just search Evan Carmichael, or I believe his channel name is Modeling the Masters. And we talked all about, YouTube as a business and getting started and advice for new YouTubers and whatnot. But really, I mean, it's take the fact that you're beginning as a gift, and that you don't have a big following when you start out, and learn and get those get those learning curves out of the way before you have a big audience. And you'll know right away whether you enjoy it or not. I think it's really fun. I think a lot of people get very hung up in analytics and frustrated if they're not getting a certain amount of views and whatnot. And I think that's kind of too bad, because nobody was even thinking about that when I first started, it was just kind of like, oh, this is a fun new social media thing, new thing. I don't think we used the word social media back then. It was just like, oh, this is interesting and fun.
YouTube, what's that?
Yeah, and we didn't have that pressure of like, okay, what's our analytics? Who's watching? What's our, what's this? How much money is our videos making? So I think if you can go in it with the attitude of you're going to learn and have fun, you'll do well, and experiment as much as you can.
And I think underline the word fun, because if you're not having fun in your videos, people will pick up on that.
Right.
I think that's why you have so many followers, Lindsay, is because people can tell you're having fun. You're enjoying doing this, and it spreads through the microphone into the painting, and other people have fun because you're having fun.
Thank you. I am having fun. It is great. I love it. I'm going to do a little bit of brown underneath. This is the burnt ochre, just to kind of give it a little more definition. Pull it away from that background a little bit.
Flying Dream. Hi, Lindsay. Can you please draw a street scene next? I really want to draw one, but can't seem to find any tutorials.
Like a city street scene?
Just a street scene. Beverly Mossman. Lindsay, can one paint in watercolors on fabric?
I would use ink tents if you want to use fabric, which they're a watercolor pencil, or you can get them in a block form. And I'm just adding another little bud there. It feels a little bare. They are permanent on fabric, so it's kind of like a interesting little quality that they have. They're not light fast, so that's the only downside to those pencils. They're awfully fun, and they're super, super bright and highly pigmented, but they will fade, but they're really fun for working on fabric. And maybe you could even use, like, maybe if you use a fabric medium over that, they would be more light fast. I'm not sure, but they're called ink tents, and you can get them in bars or in pencils. I recommend the pencils. I think they're a little more useful, but they're a lot of fun.
Row Flow, thank you so much for the tips. I'm trying to get customers to do a class.
Good. Good. Classes are great because then you get income over and over and over again. I need to dry this so I can add more layers.
Selena Marino, do you get these beautiful images you paint from your head? If so, how do you imagine them?
A lot of these I'm working from reference photos, and when I'm working from reference photos, I link the photo in the video description. And this one is from, I believe, Paul Shaford from Paint My Photo. I have his name in the, it's in the link. But I get a lot of my photos from Paint My Photo because the photographers give permission for artists to use the photographs.
Bonnie Hosfeld, what size is your paper?
I think it's about 7 by 11. It's 1/8 of a sheet of full-size watercolor paper.
The Star 22, have you tried Faber-Castell Graphite Aquarelle Pencil?
No, I haven't, but I have used some water-soluble watercolor pencils. I'm going to scrub a little bit here because I want to have a little bit of the chest feathers showing. I have used the Derwent Graphitin, and those are really fun. They're like a graphite pencil that have a little bit of color added to them, and they just give a really kind of soft, pretty look. I just have a clean wet brush, and I'm wiggling it in the paint. I'm going to try to lift off some of the background. I'm not worried if I can't get that much off because colored pencils are opaque, and I can always go over what I do in watercolors with a colored pencil.
Jade K, I have just started trying out watercolor paints after doing basic drawing and painting. Do you have any advice for a beginner?
For watercolor paints, just don't fight the medium. You know, the medium wants to flow. The medium is transparent. You know, keep that in mind while you're painting so you don't try to make it something it's not. I'm gonna do some yellow ochre in that area I just lifted out. Also, yellow ochre tends to be semi-opaque, so it's just a natural quality of the paint, so it'll help cover up some of the background I couldn't remove. And you don't have to put this in, because I mean it is pretty much a back view, but I think it just adds a little something to have that little bit of the belly showing. Then I'm going to put a little bit of the burnt sienna next to the right next to the wing, just to give it a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of depth of color. And I also want to see, I didn't leave space for the foot, but I'm going to see if I can do that if my paint's thick enough. So I'm using burnt sienna. I'm just going to see if I can put a couple feet over there. It might stick on top if it's thick. Yeah, it looks like it is. I might have to go over it with the pencils just to, you know, lock it down, but get something in there anyway. There we go. All right, now we're going to start adding some details to our bird. Just keep in mind the belly is still wet, but I'm not going to bother going ahead to dry it right now because I can work on other portions while we're waiting. And I'm going to go in with I have that number 2 round, and I've got the phthalo blue with some burnt sienna to darken it. And we're going to start adding our details. And I'm going to start around the eye and darkening the face and feathers around the eye. Oh, I will be doing some tutorials and reviews of the Dr. Martin, P.H. Martin watercolors that you guys have been asking about. So that will be coming up soon on the channel. They should be arriving fairly soon to the studio. I've never used them. I've only used kids grade liquid watercolors, so I'm pretty excited to try those out. I'm going to do a little bit of this dark. I'm going to try to go in and put as many of these dark values in as I can. So I'm tapping this on. Try to keep my hand out of the way. I'm tapping this on because, bead of water, got to watch out for the bead. I want it to kind of have the impression of little tufts of feathers. So if I tap it, I won't have a smooth line. I'll have a rougher line that will look like it could be fuzzy feathers. And this way we can kind of break little feathered areas apart and make it look a little bit more realistic and detailed. And you might not even need to go in too much with the colored pencils, depending on how this looks when we're all done. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask me. I'm probably going to be kind of just fussing a lot and just kind of zoning out, so feel free to type those questions in caps and Sarah will ask them to me. Do you know how many people we have hanging out with us today?
253 are currently watching
that's
right now.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. And I have to say big thanks to everybody that went and checked out my Craftsy class and enrolled. I mean, because you never know. I mean, I do free videos on YouTube, and I'm just so grateful that people watch. But for people to actually plunk down their cold hard cash and buy a class, I mean, it's just because you just don't know. You're like, is anyone actually gonna buy a class from me? And it just was so heartwarming. And I was kind of nervous. I didn't know if anybody would go for it. It really just warmed my heart to see that you guys value my content enough that you actually will pay for a class. I was just so touched beyond belief, and thank you all. And I know not everybody can take a class, and the fact that you're here watching and hanging out live just means the world, and I really just want to thank you all for your support. It's been amazing. I'm going in with a little bit more of the blue, less of the brown, and I'm just going to be tapping on some specks on the head just to give it kind of that polka dot look. Bring a little bit of that over the belly because we do have a little bit of that blue coming out there. And I might switch back to that bigger brush because I don't want to have too many fussy lines up there. Maybe do the little ones over here and then go back to that bigger brush. Get any questions?
Yeah, I got a little behind. I'm finding the spot where I got.
Oh yeah, that's so hard. It's like when you're on Instagram and you're flipping through and then you have to stop. You have to, I don't know, your phone goes to sleep or whatever. And you go back and you can't find your spot. So can I just go back to instead of looking at these last 200 things? I want to see what I missed. Not the same things again.
Sydney Doe, I'm thinking I might start watercolor painting and wondering if I should buy watercolor pencils or traditional watercolors.
I would go for the paints before pencils. But, it depends on if you're a rubber stamper and you're mostly wanting to rubber stamp, the pencils would probably be a better fit for you. But if you want to like do paintings like we're doing here, I would go for the paints first. You're going to get more bang for your buck. And you don't need as many because you can mix. And when you have pencils, you can still mix the pencils, but it seems like whenever you're starting with a dry media, even though watercolor pencils you can blend, you still seem to need more of them. But as watercolor paints, you can have 6 tubes of paint and mix an infinite amount of stuff. And I'm pushing my brush. I'm still with a small brush, but I'm pushing it more and flicking it up so I get a wider stroke. Now I'm going back to the big one because I don't want to get too fussy. Back in with that phthalo. Keep wanting to dip into ultramarine. Oh, and here's a tip. I think I can probably show you. It's pretty gross and dirty, but I took masking tape and put it across my palette and wrote the names of my colors because when they're dry, they're a lot darker than they are, and it can be very confusing to see like what shade of blue do you have. Is it phthalo? Is it ultramarine? When they're both really dark in your palette, it can be very hard to tell. So and that was something my art teacher told me when I was 7. This was my first palette I set up like that, and I've always done it if I've ever had a doubt. It's a nice thing about setting up your own palette as opposed to like buying pans, which I like too, is that you can, label them and have them set up just the way you want.
Beverly Mossman, Lindsay, I would take your class for sure, but I'm not an artist painter.
Well, this is mixed media. There's a lot of techniques. It really demystifies doing mixed media. I know sometimes you just think, well, it just happens and it's random and there's no order to it, but there is order and there are principles that you can follow to create, beautiful layered works of art. But absolutely do not feel obligated to sign up. Do the art that makes your heart sing. All right, now let's move over to some colored pencils for some finishing touches, and this is going to be done. I'm just going to blast it real quick because the colored pencil will tear up my paper if it's wet underneath.
Cindy McVeigh, a lot of my watercolor sets have included a tube of white gouache. How do you usually use that?
I like to save that and use it at the end either to fix mistakes or if I want to put a highlight on something and I don't feel like gouging the paper or I haven't reserved my white, then I can use a little bit of that. Generally, when you add white to a painting, it's no longer a traditional watercolor. It's only a problem if you're going to enter it in a contest or something. But and usually the white of the paper is a little bit more lively than white paint. But that's what I do. But you can always mix it with your pigments if you want to do a gouache painting. So it's it's completely up to you. Maybe you feel like working on black paper or something that's been you've India inked something and you want to bring some white back. You can use it for that. I really don't like rules so much, but I do think there are important guidelines that are nice to know.
You have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Exactly. And this is a poor old pencil that I had to start sharpening from the other end. But it is old because it says barrel Prismacolor on there. I don't think they've been barrel Prismacolor since the 80s. So I guess it's earned the right to be a little rough around the edges. I want that really white glow here on the chest, so I'm just doing little strokes of white. So it looks like the sun's kind of lighting up those little feathers. Okay, that's all you need. Just a little hint there. And then I'm going to go in with this is sable, which is like a yellowy cream, and I'm going to add that right next to it and kind of blend over the edge so it's not too harsh. Give a little highlight on the foot too while I'm at it with this.
Ashley Eaton, best color pencils that don't break and are blendable.
If you want a really soft pencil that doesn't break very easily, and I just splurged and ordered a set of 72, is the Color Soft and it's like I'm recommending these Color Soft pencils to everybody. Why do I only have a set of 20? I have a set of 24, and then I've got the fashion colors of like 2015 fashion colors. It's like, what am I doing?
Way behind.
I'm behind the time, so I actually splurged and ordered a set of 72 of those. But they're really creamy, like the Prismacolors, but they don't seem to break. They will feel a little bit gritty, a little grittier than like a Prismacolor, and I think they probably have some sort of additive or something in the lead to keep them a little more rigid, but they're really soft. The Soho ones are nice too. They're very inexpensive, and at Jerry's, and I like those for like underlayers. I don't find them as opaque, so like going over a watercolor painting. I think we used them last week, so you can see them in action if you want to in last week's tutorial, and I did a house mouse coloring thing with them, and they're a harder lead and they really are resistant to breakage, but it just depends on the feel that you prefer. They're less expensive than the Derwents as well. It just goes by what you prefer. They're both quality. Light fastness, I think the Sohos might be more light fast though. I don't think not all the Prismacolors are light fast. Probably the Sohos would be the best bet for light fast. You know, you get something, you have to give something up, it seems like, with a lot of these things. So, you know, you might be getting creaminess, but you're giving up, you know, light fast, or they're going to be more, you know, breakable. You know, you got to pick your priorities, I guess.
Sydney Doe, I'm thinking about starting with a Winsor Newton Cotman. Anyone have opinions?
Oh, go for
Everyone's got opinions.
This is YouTube. Are you kidding me?
This is the internet.
You'll get opinions if you want them or not. Good, bad, and indifferent.
Desiree Coomerly.
But yes, I do want to. Yes, Cotmans, definitely go for it. They're made by Winsor Newton. They use the same pigments as their professional line. There's just not as much strength. There'll be a little bit more filler in there, you know, to account for the cost, but they're wonderful. I recommend them. I use them in my student class, the class at the library, and their quality, they're very reliable.
Desiree Coomerly, what type of watercolor tubes should a beginner get when starting out?
Well, the Cotmans are good. We just talked about those. Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing here I'm just doing some of that cloud blue or gray just to give it a little bit of highlight on the beak there. And since it was in our branch, that's the sunlight. It's highlighting. It's a local color. Using it again here makes sense. Yeah, these Turner tubes are excellent. The Turner tubes are going to be more expensive than the Well, actually, I think these tubes are smaller. You might pay about the same price per tube, but you're getting more pigment in it because there's not the fillers, because they're a professional line. You know, the set of 18 colors is $29.99 at Jerry's right now. So, you know, use that as a base and then kind of look at the Cotmans and, you know, see if you maybe you don't want 18 colors and you just want to get a few. All these paints are going to work well with each other. So it's not like, well, you bought 2 tubes of Cotman, now you're stuck with Cotman for here in eternity. Mix them up. They're all going to be fine.
Eternity. Forever.
You've just married that brand of paint.
Just forever.
Yeah.
Sunil Kumar, how can I add another color area to a layer which is already dry without leaving any boundaries?
Well, if you're layering over, like if I wanted to layer over, like say the wing, but I didn't want to have a hard edge on the back, I would keep the paper dry. And I would add the color like over here, and then I would clean my brush off, and then with a damp brush I'd spread it over. I might even like blot my brush off and then go over that last line, and it will blend it so you won't have an edge. So basically you want to make sure that last edge that you have is just blended, you have a damp brush. You don't want it wet or you're going to end up with lines. You just want it, wet it, blot it, and then go over that last line, and it will spread it. And if you want to enhance that polka dot look on the head, you can do that with that cloud blue. And gosh, I really think I don't need to do much more to this.
Him, I have the Premier markers and, in quotations, art markers. Which is best for illustration?
The Premier and art markers. Oh, those are both from Nicole. I really think they're very similar. I think the Premier markers have higher quality nibs on them though. I think the art markers, they're from AC Moore, the packages. I just think that was kind of their first. That was probably them testing the waters to see if they wanted to release. I mean, I don't know because I don't work there obviously, but I think that was probably kind of their prequel to decide whether they could come out with a line and it would sell or not. I think the Premiers are a little bit better, and I would swatch them out because their indexing is not great. The marker quality themselves is good, excuse me, but I don't think their indexing is very good, and it's deceiving when you see the color on the package, on the caps. They don't really match up very well.
Maria Mead, I just went and bought your class. You
Oh,
are awesome,
thank
and I support you
you.
100%. Big hugs.
Thank you, Maria. That's awesome. I'll see you in class. It's great because it's a classroom and you can share your work as you go through the class if you want to. You don't have to, but it's really
that's cool.
Yeah, it's fun because then you can see what everyone's working on, and if you ask a question, it shows me what part of the video you were watching, so I can see exactly what you mean. You know, if you're saying, how come my paints aren't blending here, or what did you do here? If there's anything that's not clear, I can see exactly what you were watching when you were confused.
NK Nana 3, do you ever lift your paint when putting another layer of paint over your previous layer?
Only if it's on purpose, I'm assuming she means. Only if it's like I'm going over it with a totally different color. Like I have a green background and I want to paint a pink flower on top. Then I would go and brush over that area, blot it off, and then go in and paint. But generally I don't. I try to glaze. Now I'm going to add just a little more shadow on the branch. I feel like I want the branch a little thicker, so I'm going in with my burnt sienna and my number 2 round. Remember, we're only using 3 brushes in this whole thing. And I'm just going to go in and add some shadow. And I can even kind of go over the branch, and if there's any areas that don't have a lot of colored pencil, it'll kind of grab it a little bit and give me a little bit of a coarse texture, which is kind of bark-like.
Shannon Flores, Lindsay, have you ever done paper quilling?
I have. I've got a box of quilling stuff upstairs. Downstairs. I do it every once in a while, but then I kind of run out of things to put quilling on. I use it on cards, and I've used it on in jewelry and stuff. It's a lot of fun. The only thing I don't like is storing those darn strips.
I know. It's hard. Because you can never get them back in the thing that they come in.
Mm-hmm.
Phoebe, not a stupid question, but this is her question. She said, this is a stupid question, but what do you mean by light fast? There are no stupid questions on this channel. We are all here to learn and share information with each other.
Yep. Light fast refers to how resistant to fading it is. So you want a paint that's light fast if you want your paintings to last. Some you probably think, well, why do they make colors that aren't light fast? Well, it's because people buy them and they want them. There are certain vivid colors that they can't make light fast. And if you're a designer and all your work just needs to be photographed and reproduced, you don't care about the light fastness so much. Like if you're working in advertising, it doesn't matter if your marker work fades, because you're just getting it to be able to be photographed. Like markers are notoriously have poor light fastness. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water. So that's all that refers to. So like if you're gonna do something that's gonna be on a card, you're probably not as concerned with like your rubber stamp stuff not fading. But if it's gonna go in a scrapbook or it's gonna hang on a wall, you'd be much more concerned with that. So I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'm just gonna sign my name and call it done. I like the beak better on this one, but I don't know. I always like to look at them side by side and see which one I like better. What do you guys think? That's the one I did beforehand with the little crazy beak, and that's the one we just did right now. Let's sign my name. If you have any more questions, go ahead and ask me before we sign off.
Oh yeah, let's see. Boy, have I got so behind. Abby Paris, how do I avoid hard edges when I'm painting with my watercolors?
Well, working on wet paper for your background wash will prevent the hard edges. And then, like I mentioned, taking a damp brush and like if I've just painted this area, then I take a brush, clean it off, blot it, and go along that line. It's going to blend out the pigment so I don't get a hard edge. Oh, and I promised I would show you how to remove the tape without tearing your paper. So what you want to do, I'm just going to lift this up and shift it over a little bit so you can see really well. I like to fold it back on itself. Sorry if this is a little blurry because I'm holding it up and it might be out of the focus range because I set it so it doesn't go in and out. And then I carefully pull it. But for some reason when I pull it like that, it doesn't put the stress on the paper. So it comes right up that way. And maybe this is because it's cheap dollar store masking tape, then maybe it's not the tackiest of tapes, I don't know. But it keeps the paint from seeping underneath, and that's really all I'm concerned with. I'm gonna hold this up here. I'll pull this one off. But yeah, just pull it at an angle, just fold it back on itself and then pull it back, and that should give you that nice that nice unripped line. But I also noticed that poor quality paper will tear, like the student quality paper will tear because it doesn't have the sizing in it. It's just not, it's made with short fibers versus long fibers, and that's kind of what you're paying for with more expensive paper. It's so they make the expensive paper first, and then afterwards in the vat of water and sludge is all those short little fibers of cotton or paper, and they use that to make the second grade or student paper. So it's not as durable, so it's easy for those little bits of paper to come unwound or come loose and pull up when you're either scrubbing out an area to lift paint, or you're untaping, you're taking tape off. It's just not as durable of a paper. So I honestly think if you can only splurge on one thing, splurging on your paper will probably give you a better experience painting than splurging on your paint or even splurging on your brushes. Although I do like to get good brushes because they'll last you forever if you take care of them, for watercolor anyway.
Okay, there's people are. I think I'm as caught up as a.
Okay, tell you what, guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section. So after we go off air and you refresh the page, the comments box should come up. If you type your questions in the comments area, I can go in and answer them, and then other people that are watching the replay can also benefit from those questions if they didn't hear them answered live. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I want to thank jerry'sautorama.com for sponsoring this video. There's links to all the supplies that I used in the video description, so check that out, and also a link to the gorgeous photo that I used as inspiration. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye!